All right. Well, happy Resurrection Sunday, Remembrance Community Church. You want to try it again? He is risen. He is risen. My name is Pastor Kenny, and I'm genuinely excited to be here with you this morning. And this morning, we're going to talk about freedom, or as Mel Gibson's character said in the classic movie Braveheart, freedom! Sorry. Actually, I have two goals this morning. This task this week was a little challenging as I'm thinking about how are we going to complete our series that we're in on the Lord's Prayer. And it ends with the sixth and final petition this morning, which is, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. And as we'll see, I believe this morning, that really is an invite into walking out the freedom that Jesus accomplished when he rose from the dead. And we're also going to celebrate Easter, which of course is a celebration of Jesus' life, in his death, in his resurrection, and his promise to come back, which is a good news promise. And a lot of times when we talk about the significance of what particularly takes place and the work that Jesus did on the cross and the victory that Jesus won when he rose from the dead, and we use words like salvation, right? And Jesus is our Savior. He saves us from all that we needed saving from, which is so much stuff. And he's our Redeemer, right? There's redemption in Christ. I think if you're like me, you probably look back and have some things you regret. Some things you wish you could do some do-overs on, right? And yet Jesus is able to come and redeem all of that. And he's also reconciles us to God. We were estranged from God, our Creator. And he did everything, he removed everything that needed to be removed so that we can have a relationship with God, reconciliation. And we can use the term deliverance. He delivers us from the evil one as we pray. And this morning we're going to look at another word, freedom. He offers freedom to us. And who doesn't long for freedom? In fact, let's all pause for a moment and be a little introspective. And I want you to think deeply about this. What do you think you would need to be freed from right now in your life in order to be your best self? Or to use the kind of cheesy vernacular of our time, to live your best life. But what do you need freedom from? And it's kind of interesting to look back in history and discover that every generation has sought a version of freedom. If you were born in the 60s and 70s, remember the hippie movement? What kind of freedom were you guys looking for, right? This countercultural movement, right? Free love, right? Freedom from what? I grew up in the punk rock movement of the 80s and 90s as a Gen Xer, right? Freedom from establishment. Like I mentioned last week, experts that are doing cultural analysis on our times and saying like, what is this generation all about? They're calling it the age of authenticity. It's this seeking freedom to live your own truth and discover who you truly are. Be your truest self. But as we really sit back and ask, do any of these movements, do any of these attempts at freedom, have any of them really brought freedom and fulfillment and flourishing? I think Bono of the great band U2 said it best. And we still haven't found what we're looking for. There's a reason why I'm not on the worship team. I should have probably had Sam do a little accompaniment with his harmonica. That might have helped out that wonderful moment. But Jesus has this great line in John 8 about what truly can give us freedom, the freedom that our hearts long for. And he's being confronted by some Jewish leaders in John 8, right? They're questioning his methods and his message. And Jesus makes he often says some hard things, He's going to end up saying, like, your father is Satan, right? Like, that's a hard saying. But what he's getting at is they're questioning his methods, and Jesus is saying, you guys are chasing after freedom and peace and in all the wrong places. You guys think that if you could just get freedom from Roman tyranny, that everything would be fine. But that's not going to work. It's not going to give you the freedom you think it is. And he ends up telling them that you don't believe in me, and I came from God. God is the truth. He said, you're following after the deceptions of the evil one, who's offering false sense of freedom. You're following after him, believing his lies, like every generation does. And he says, if you would believe the truth would set you free. He says, I came from God. I know the truth. And then he goes in this great line in verse 36, he goes, so if the Son, Jesus, sets you free, then you're free indeed. Jesus here is making an enlightening statement and a fact about freedom. Freedom is a good thing to pursue. Freedom is a good thing to desire. If you want to be truly free, though, here's what Jesus is telling us. If you want to be truly free, you need a better leader. Who was the leader of the hippie movement? Who were the leaders of the hippie movement? As they were creating their own countercultural communities and raised on rock and roll, right? Who were the leaders of my generation, the Gen Xers? Often left to fend for themselves as latchkey kids and raised on MTV. Who are the leaders of the age of authenticity, demanding freedom from conformity or authority figures that would impose oppressive restraints that threaten to hinder their progress in becoming their truest self? Raised on podcasts, YouTube, and influencers on Instagram and TikTok. The fact is, every generation has this one thing in common. We all need a better leader. Jesus offers to lead us to true freedom. We need Jesus. We need Jesus to be our rabbi, our teacher. We need Jesus to be our king, our leader. And I would submit that Easter is a reminder of this truth, that freedom is available, and Jesus is the only one that can truly give us the freedom and fulfillment and flourishing that our hearts are longing for. Here's a reality check for us about freedom. It's possible to be set free, but not live in that freedom. It's possible to be set free and yet not live in the freedom that is available to you and that Jesus died. He lived and died and rose and promised to come back again. When we receive the gift of salvation that Jesus offers through his death and resurrection, we are set free. Amen? And many Christian believers have been set free, but they don't live in that freedom. And so here's how we connect this beautifully to the Lord's Prayer. And specifically the sixth and final petition, which is lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. It's a prayer inviting us to walk in the freedom that Jesus died and rose to give us. And yet we have to walk it out. We have to trust him moment by moment. We have to lean on him, reach out to him. Let him continue to transform us from the inside out. A prayer for walking in freedom. So let's stand together as we always do, as we read God's word. If you're able to stand with me. And I'm going to read through the entire prayer that we've been looking at, and then we'll really just hone in on this sixth and final petition. Jesus said to his apprentices, his disciples, he said, therefore, you should pray like this. Our Father in heaven, your name be honored as holy. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. And do not bring us into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. You may be seated. Jesus offers us freedom from anything that might keep us from living an intimate, close relationship with our God. And through his work on the cross and his victory over death on Sunday, he did that. And when we receive Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, we are truly free from sin, from shame, from guilt, from all the things that would keep us from drawing near to him. And Jesus also offers us leadership to be our rabbi. He says, follow me. That's a call to say, I want to be your leader. Follow me. He offers to be our rabbi, our teacher. Follow my instructions. I've left you plenty of instructions. I left you a model for how to live. And I left you a model for how to pray. And he invites us to follow him as disciples, or like I said, apprentices, which is kind of a more modern term that we might use, so what that looks like. And one of his aims was to teach us to walk in the freedom that he died and rose to win for us. And it is possible to be set free, but to still live in bondage, oppression, and deception. And as I said, one of the great tools he gave us that we've been studying now for months is this model prayer called the Lord's Prayer. And it's really simple. It's constructed brilliantly. It's really just 6 petitions. The first 3 are directed towards God and his glory. His name be honored as holy. His leadership as king established on the earth as it is in heaven. His way of seeing things and doing things pursued as the best way to do things and to see things. And then 3 petitions, which are the things that we need in order to follow this Jesus and participate with him in what he's about. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our debts, and help us to show mercy and grace and forgiveness to those around us. Help us to love our neighbor, you might say. And then finally, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Now that's interesting, right? And do not bring us into temptation. It's okay to ask questions when you read the Bible and you're like, I don't totally get that. Anybody else ever do that when you're reading the Bible? Like, I have some questions. Like, do you really need to ask God not to lead you into temptation? Is that something that God's about? Do we have to worry about that? Like God leading us into temptation? Why do we have to say, hey, God, don't lead us into temptation? Was he going to if we didn't say that? Ask him that? When we have hard questions, it's good to slow down and think through these things biblically, right? So let's do some Bible study work right now. You guys with me? The word translated temptation here is the Greek word peirasmos. Say that with me. Peirasmos. I probably said it wrong. I led you astray. Should have prayed. Lead us not into temptation, right? Peirasmos has 2 different meanings that it's used. One is to test, and one is to tempt. One is a trial, a test. The other is an enticement to sin. They're 2 very different things. A test is something meant to prove a person's character, and in the process, to improve it. A test is something that will test you, and it will challenge you, but it will help you grow. You'll get better from it. A temptation is meant to entice a person to sin, or to bring somehow a person away from God. A parasimos is a difficult or challenging situation, you might say, in life, which can either be a test, proving and improving a person's character, or a temptation. A temptation that would try to draw you away from God or entice you to do the wrong thing. And whether it's a test or a temptation often depends on who's behind it and how we respond. Parasimos. Jesus' brother James wrote one of the books that's in the Bible. It's named after him. It's called James. He tells us that God never tempts us. He never tempts us in the way that parasimos might mean, where it says, he never entices us to sin. In James 1:13 and 14, it says, no one undergoing a trial, a parasimos, should say, I'm being tempted by God. Since God is not tempted by evil, and he himself doesn't tempt anyone. But each person is tempted when he's drawn away and enticed by his own evil desire. And then after that desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And when sin is fully grown, it gives birth to death. In other words, it's not hard to get me to do the wrong thing, right? All you got to do is just dangle the carrot that I want in front of me, my heart's desire, that thing I long for, my flesh's desire. Just say, here, I'm giving it to you as an option. And then if I choose to do that, it leads me down a dark path. And we've all probably experienced that. So God doesn't entice us, though, to sin. What does entice us to sin is our own sinful, selfish, self-serving, self-righteous, which just simply means we think we know better, desires. And this is a great insight also into how the devil is able to influence so many generations to turn away from God. Just offer them what their hearts are desiring. It comes from what the biblical scholars throughout church history have called the three enemies of the soul. You know what they are? The flesh, the world, and the devil. These are the things that entice us. Our flesh, we naturally just often want to do things that God wouldn't want us to do. We think it will improve our lives. We think it will help us achieve what we're looking for. We bite into that. The world offers all kinds of advice and influence, doesn't it? And behind all of that is the devil. One who's kind of using all of those things to entice us to sin. Right before this passage in James, he says we should rejoice when we face trials of many kinds. Because when we face trials the way God intends for us to face trials, struggles in this life, when we go through them, when we endure them, they lead to strengthening our character. They improve us. They improve our faith. But know this, God never entices us to sin. We don't have to pray and ask God not to entice us to sin. That's not what the sixth petition is about. And Paul, the Apostle Paul, offers another great piece of info about temptation and how it works in 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians 10:13 says, no temptation has come upon you except what is common to humanity. But God is faithful. He will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able. But with the temptation, he will also provide the way out so that you may be able to bear it. In other words, we're never tempted and forced to sin, right? Like if you're a dating couple, a Christian dating couple, and kind of your goal is to do things a pure way, right? And then you have movie night, and you're alone on the couch and watching a romantic comedy. And then you know how we are. We're like, well, you know how we are, right? And all of a sudden, like, the mood hits you, right? Are you forced to cross the line? No, there's a way out. What's the way out? Maybe get up and go grab a cup of coffee. Maybe make a phone call. Maybe, I don't know. Like, there's a way out. But that doesn't mean we always take that way out, right? We often make our lives harder on ourselves. We often make our temptations harder on ourselves with the choices we make. But God doesn't put you in that position and force you to do that. He always provides a way out. There's always a way of wisdom that God provides for us to endure and even avoid temptation. In the Eastern Orthodox tradition, they sometimes use this great tag-on prayer. It comes from the 5th century in the liturgy of St. James. And after they pray this, and you'll see it's obviously influenced from Paul's words in 1 Corinthians, but after they recite the Lord's Prayer, he or she will often say, "Yes, O Lord our God, lead us not into temptation, which we are not able to bear, but with the temptation, grant us also the way out, so that we may be able to remain steadfast." So God doesn't entice us to sin. He actually doesn't allow us to be tempted beyond what we can bear. So when we pray, "Lead us not into temptation," it must be an acknowledgement that we on our own are weak. We're prone to wander. We're prone to give in to temptation and sin. I would submit to you that it is a petition that can sound just like this: "Help!" Jesus was famously tempted in 2 places in Scripture. Think about that. At the beginning of his ministry, he was led out into the wilderness where he was tempted. Literally came face to face with whatever Satan is, whoever Satan is. And Satan was tempting him in the wilderness with the things that his human heart was desiring. He hadn't eaten for 40 days, and he was hungry. And so Satan tempted him, "Why don't you just turn that stone right there into bread? Use the power that you have as God. You're fully God, but you're also fully human. I know you're hungry. Why don't you use your fully Godness and take care of your fully humanness right now by turning that stone into bread?" And Jesus knew that wasn't God's plan for him. And he quoted Scripture, "Man does not live by bread alone," right? And he was also tempted to have the kingdom. "I'll give you the kingdom," which is what he prays, right? "Your kingdom come on earth." It's his heart's desire. We know that about Jesus. But he would give it to him without him having to do all the hard work that was in front of him. He could bypass all the hard work and just have his kingdom now. He can have his cake and eat it too. And Jesus endures the temptation with the word of God in the Torah. He quotes Deuteronomy. And then at the end of his life, at the end of his ministry, he's in the Garden of Gethsemane, and Jesus' flesh is failing him. He literally sweats blood in angst. And he's praying, but the anxiety of the moment won't let up. Have you ever been through that? Like, that's not an experience Jesus doesn't relate to. God, I keep praying and asking you to take this from me, but I don't know why you're not. I don't have an answer for you, but I do have this hope. Jesus knows what that feels like. And he asks his friend Peter, James, and John, who were right there with him, "Hey, would you just stay up with me this one night, please, and pray with me? Help me." In Matthew 26:41, he asks them, he goes, "Stay awake and pray so that you won't enter into temptation." Then he says, "The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." Your spirit is willing, oftentimes. If you're a Christian, your spirit is willing. The desire is there to follow Jesus. Amen? But our flesh is weak. This great author that I love just sitting with, I never sat with him for coffee or anything. I just read his books, but I like to imagine I'm sitting with him for coffee. He says this. He says, when we say, lead us not into temptation, we're admitting to God that we do not have the strength to rescue ourselves. I also like what philosopher Dallas Willard says about this, specifically about this sixth petition. He says, this request is not just for evasion of pain and of things we don't like, though it is frankly that. Right? Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, what did he do? He goes, if there's any other way to accomplish the redemption, the salvation, and give these people the freedom, if there's any other way that isn't me going on that cross, let's do that. But I know that that's not possible. So your will be done, not my will. So we can ask God to take away the pain. It's not wrong. But it expresses also the understanding that we can't stand up to very much pressure. And he goes on, the prayer is a vote of no confidence in our own ability. As the series of requests begins with the glorification of God, it ends with the acknowledgement of the feebleness of human beings. Oh, Father, we cannot stand up under very much pressure. Do not lead us into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. In short, we need Jesus. So we add this great petition, but deliver us from the evil one. Now here's a strategy that I think you all can relate to and probably have experienced. When you're facing an opposition, it's always good to study and know who you're up against. Like if you're a sports team, if you're a professional sports team, they hire whole teams that just go out and analyze the other team and then give you like a whole spreadsheet on what to expect when you face a certain batter or pitcher or quarterback or whatever. If you're gonna be a nation that's gonna go to war, right? You analyze and you study the strengths of your enemy. It's important to know who your enemy is, who the evil one is. The evil one, my friends, is a deceiver. We know that. The Bible tells us that. In John 8:44, it says, he was a murderer from the beginning. And he does not stand in the truth because there's no truth in him. When he tells a lie, he's speaking from his own nature because he's a liar and the father of lies. The book of Revelation, there's this wonderful, hard to understand, but exciting in our imagination language. He says, so the great dragon was thrown out, the ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan, the one who deceives the whole world. The Apostle Peter, he tells us in 1 Peter 5:8, be sober-minded, be alert. Your adversary, the devil, is prowling around like a roaring lion, looking for anyone he can to devour. He says we need to be sober-minded, don't we? Deception takes place in the mind. The devil operates like a hunting lion. You know how lions hunt? If you ever watch the Discovery Channel, it's fascinating and gross. I love it. They just roar around, right? They roar around like a lion because that's what they are. They're lions, right? And they chase around this pack of gazelles. And the gazelles, here's the interesting thing. They're way stronger as a community than the lion. Way stronger. There's no way the lion wins. So he just chases them around all over, lion-y places. And then one of them like gets stuck inevitably behind a bush or gets isolated. And that was his strategy all along. Not to catch all the gazelles, just to isolate one of them. And then he can devour it. So Peter uses this analogy. Be sober-minded. The evil one's a deceiver. This takes place in the mind, in your thoughts. And his goal is to isolate you. to get you alone in your thoughts, to get you in your head, and then he's going to have his way with you. As a pastor, I see the strategy of the devil every day, even in our small congregation. Satan uses personal conflict. Someone says something you don't like. I say something you don't like. And then all of a sudden we want to bail. We want to isolate. We want to come up with excuses not to come anymore, not to be around those hypocrites. It's all a strategy. We have to know that. Anything that he can do to separate you, to keep you from being connected, to get you in your head, thinking all those thoughts that we start to believe a little bit, right? And just like any other sin, whether it's in your mind or it's in action, it just kind of spirals down. There's always doors that there's always a way out, but we don't always take it, and it just keeps getting worse and darker, and you feel more and more isolated and alone. Hello, that's what it's like to be human. Amen? And now we know why. Because there's a strategy actively working against us. But here's the good news. We can be sober-minded. We can believe the truth. Jesus came to say, hey, I'm going to live this life and show you that I know what it feels like. But I also am going to show you a better way. When we choose to follow Jesus, it's a choice to live in true freedom. When we choose to do it our own way, it is a choice. It is a choice to be deceived, and it won't lead to freedom. The devil loves to get in your head. He questions God's intentions. He questions God's love for us. He questions God's forgiveness for us. How could he forgive me of this one thing, right? You beat yourself up. And yet the Bible says, if the Son has set you free, you're free indeed. Well, it doesn't feel like it right now. But it's true. Hold on. Trust, believe. There's no promise or indication that living in the freedom of Christ will be easy or without struggles or without anxious nights of the soul where we'll just pray, God, help me, and we won't feel it. And we need to know Jesus understands that pain. But when he woke up in the morning, yes, he was led to the cross. But 3 days later, just like he knew what happened, just like he promised, what happened? He rose from the dead. When Jesus was tempted in the wilderness, it says he hadn't eaten for 40 days, and he was tempted with these really hard temptations. And after he had resisted for a little while, the angels came and attended to him and ministered to him. There's always a way out. In Christ, there's always light at the end of the tunnel if we'll just hold on. Jesus makes this great prayer right before he goes to the Garden of Gethsemane in John 17. It's called the high priestly prayer. And he doesn't pray that God would remove all the struggles from our lives. He doesn't. He doesn't pray that God would remove all the hard stuff that we were going to have to face and make our lives easy. He doesn't. This is what he prays. I'm not praying that you would take them out of the world, but that you would protect them from the evil one. They're not of the world, just as I'm not of the world. And he goes, sanctify them by the truth. And your word is the truth. I'm going to have the worship team come back up. Sanctify them in the truth. Change them from the inside out through your truth. Deliver us from deception, from the evil one, is what he's praying. Deliver them from the deceiver, from the deceptions that start in their mind. Help them be sober-minded. Help them know the truth. I'm going to give them some things. I'm going to give them each other. Do you know, look around. Each person in this room, us collectively as a church body, we're a strategy of God to help us resist the evil one. If you think about how a lion roars, like we're the gazelles. We're the pack. There's strength in numbers. Don't get isolated. I can almost hear Jesus praying like, don't let them get isolated. Don't let them stop coming. Don't let them get their feelings hurt and then just bail. Don't let them listen to Kenny and misunderstand what he's saying and say, I'm not going to go anymore. Don't let them see all the hypocrisy in the church and forget that every time you point your finger at someone else, there's 3 pointing back at you. We're all hypocrites. Hello. Right? We're all fellow strugglers. Teach them my word. God gives us the scriptures for us to absorb and to be renewed by. Jesus said, when I leave, it'll be wonderful. What? How can it be wonderful? We want you back. No, because I'm going to give you the Holy Spirit. Jesus gives us the Holy Spirit to work within our community as we read God's word. It's all connected, right? And he teaches us to pray. He teaches us what he cares about. That God's name would be honored as holy. You're God, I'm not. What great news. That his kingdom would come. You know, our hope is not in a political leader. We could pray for those things. We should pray for those things. It's not that those things aren't important, but our hope is not found in those things. Our hope is found in Christ and Christ alone. Your kingdom come. You be the king on earth as it is in heaven. Your will be done. If we could just do things your way, God, wouldn't it be so much better? We want that. Give us this day our daily bread. If you're someone who's in need, like, don't try to get it apart from the ways of God. And if you're one of those persons who doesn't really have a lot of felt need, that should humble you. In Deuteronomy, it says, you know who gives you the ability to work? God. You didn't earn all that. It humbles us to say, everything that we have is a gift from God. Help us to live like every day, like everything we have is yours. Forgive us, because we're a mess. And then help us to go and live out of that forgiveness and be gracious to our neighbors who are also a mess. And lead us not into temptation. Help me, God, be faithful today. When's the last time you prayed that? You woke up in the morning, you go into work, and you go, oh, just help me, God, be faithful at work. And then you come home, help me be faithful. And then you go on date night when you're not married, help me be faithful, right? Or you have a night where you're just struggling with the dark night of the soul. Help me be faithful. Help me cling to you. Help me trust you. And deliver me from the evil one. Help me not to get in my head and to invite Satan to come and just dance around in there. Help me to get in your word. Help me to remember what you said. Help me to remember what you're about. So Easter's about freedom. And the Lord's Prayer is also about freedom. Freedom to walk it out, participate with God in what he's doing in the world and what he's doing in us and what he's doing through us. So I want to just leave us as we enter into a time of worship to just sit again, like we did in the beginning, and just reimagine, re-ask ourselves this question. What do you think you need to truly be free? And let's turn that into a prayer and ask God to give us the freedom that we need for true fulfillment in Christ and flourishing as Christ created us to do. And when he comes back, he's gonna make it all right. We will live in that flourishing then. And he's inviting us to walk in it now.